Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. I am Aesop Grimm, and this is my 5th chronicle for my Journey #1 compendium in the Elden Ring video game series that I've been working on. I'll explain that a little bit more here in just a minute, but first let's get the primary purpose of an intro video out of the way and do a content briefing. Now this is an abridged content briefing because I've got many instances of this game on my channel, but without further ado, the official ESRB rating for Elden Ring is mature 17 plus. That's mature 17 plus for blood and gore, language, suggestive themes, and violence. And one of my go-to places, commonsensemedia.org, rates it as appropriate for ages 15 plus. They give it 4 out of 5 stars. I personally would give it 5 out of 5. And they describe it real quickly as intense fantasy that has brutal and bloody medieval style combat. Now, two things about this. Number one, if you want more information, both websites, esrb.org as well as commonsensemedia.org, have more information for you to read, little descriptions, and especially commonsensemedia.org has quite a few little places you can look at, including comments. The second thing is that you may see, like Common Sense Media gave it the age 15 plus. The most popular rating systems that you find out there are typically coming from a parent's perspective, but what the perspective I'm coming from is that of self-care. If you have past trauma in your life, or you have, I guess, what we might call trigger points or something, I think it's helpful for you to see what kind of content is coming your way rather than getting bamboozled with that and then having nightmares for the next 3 weeks. I don't want to steer anybody down that road. So I try to go and give the extra effort to give you a heads up here. But if you want to know more information, you can visit either one of the sites or look up the content, the intro video for my very first chronicle, which will give you a lot more of what each of these sites, I actually read the stuff out to you, and then I give you my own perspectives as well. So there's that. Okay, that said and done, let's move on to what this chronicle is going to be about. In the last chronicle, we covered, well, let me start out by saying I'm following Fightin' Cowboy's walkthrough guide. And the reason is because whenever I played my Tree Sentinel, I reached one of those points of no return. I messed my whole game up. I changed the game state. It locked me out of certain content. And that's because I was trying to do things on my own without the use of a walkthrough guide. And then maybe after I'd done everything I could find to do, then I would refer to the walkthrough guide. But because of that methodology, I walked myself into some irreversible trouble. Now I've been through the vast majority of the game, and I feel much, much better about just following the walkthrough guide to the letter, right? So because of that, I don't want to jump ahead of Cowboy. So whatever order that he does things in, I want to stick with. And I ran into a bit of a problem, and that's because I tend to organize things by what zone we're in. So I have a Limgrave Chronicle, I have a Stormhill Chronicle, I have a Liurnia Chronicle. But then after we finished Lower Caelid, we got into this space where he had about, I would say, 9. It's not 9 videos, it's more than that, but 9 sort of distinctive mini zones before we got into the next actual zone proper, which would be the Altus Plateau. And I was sitting there wondering, okay, how do I do this? Because if I break it up by each little mini zone, these chronicles are going to be like 2 videos long. And so I settled on grouping them together as best as I could, these different videos, by what 3 main areas that I felt like that group of videos was targeting. And I tried to do it by zone. The last chronicle was a good example of that, where we did Nokron, Siofra Aqueduct, and Noxtella. Now, all three of them are kind of combined. They're really sort of the same underground zone because they're all linked together, or it seems to me. But you could separate them into those three mini zones, right? But in this one here, I didn't know this up front. Whenever I first came up with this idea of doing grouping by three, these chronicles that I'm doing right now. But after doing a little bit of research, I found that really this chronicle is really touching on two zones and then the two bosses, one for each zone. But with Fortisaxx being one of the most iconic bosses of this game, I really felt like I could stick with the group of three template. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So what we're looking at here is we're going to be doing the Lake of Rot with its end boss of Astel, the Natural Born. See, I didn't know that Astel was in the Lake of Rot before. I've never done the Lake of Rot. I've never faced Astel, right? So this is going to be brand new content for me. And then we're going to do Deeproot Depths, and its end boss is Lich Dragon Fortisaxx. Okay, so we are in Chronicle number 5. For the Journey number 1 Chronicle compendium that I'm doing, and that is all revolving around Fia's Blood Assassin. That's the character type I've done. And this particular compendium is going for the Age of Duskborn ending. Now, for those of you who don't know, I had to come up with a title for it. You know, so I say Chronicle instead of Let's Play. But a Chronicle is a Let's Play. It's a playlist of related videos, right? And then whenever I get done, and I categorize my chronicles by zone, so it's not the entire game, it's just one zone of the game. So whenever I get done with a character, I have a whole slew of chronicles for that character that can be themselves combined into one gigantic playlist that I call a compendium. I had to think of a word for that, and that's the one that I came up with. I had to actually use my noodle for that one. But is that the right term? I don't even know. But anyway, and that's the last thing I wanted to show you guys is in my last chronicle, I introduced you to a new naming convention. I have to change it again. I apologize, but let's bring that image up. Okay. What you see here, the reason I had to change it is because of Microsoft Windows and how it organizes files, its file structure. And it totally makes sense. But in the last chronicle, I had this naming convention here where I had the game title, Elden Ring. I had the compendium title, or also you could refer to this as the character archetype. In this case, it's Blood Assassin. I had the chronicle title. In this case, it's Astel and Fortisaxx. That's what this chronicle is going to be called. And then I had the episode specific content, and that was the new item I had added in. I kind of felt like it would help you guys narrow down which videos you wanted to watch, or give you an idea of what kind of content in that specific video you'd be running into, for anybody to just help you navigate a little bit better. And I had that listed first, and then I had the episode number. But with Windows, the very first thing that changes in that title sequence is how it organizes it. So whenever I had it, the very first thing that changed with the naming convention I introduced in the last chronicle was this episode-specific content. Well, so it alphabetized it. And I don't want it to alphabetize. I want it to sit in my directory numerically. I want it organized by episode 1, followed by episode 2, followed by episode 3. And that way, whenever I go to upload to YouTube, I don't have to sit there and search out which name has my latest episode. It reduces the chances of a mistake on my part. I just simply click the last video in the list because I know that's the latest episode. So in order to make that happen, I had to swap those last two components. So that's what you're seeing here now. Once again, just in summary, game title, Elden Ring. Compendium or character archetype, those are one and the same. These compendiums will always be named after the character archetype. In this case, it's Blood Assassin. Chronicle title, Astel and Fortisaxx. Episode number, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And then episode-specific content, Deep Root Depths as an example. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. And I believe that's what we can end it on. I don't really have anything else to say, except to maybe give one caveat. I have not done this content yet. So the way that I've described all this, with I think that it's going to revolve around 2 zones, Lake of Rot and Deep Root Depths. That's just as I understand it based off of fairly limited information. So if I end up being wrong about that as things unfold, that's just kind of how it goes. I'm doing kind of an offshoot of a blind playthrough here. Well, no, I can't really say it because I'm using a walkthrough guide, but I haven't seen this stuff yet. So if I'm wrong about stuff, obviously that's why. All right. So again, I am Aesop Grimm. Thank you for coming by the channel, everybody. I hope you saw enough here to entice you to give the first episode or 2 a shot and see if my commentary style is your viewership style. But even if it's not, and you've decided to tap out and move on and look for something else, wherever you're at in the world, whatever your background is, and all that stuff, I hope the best for you and yours. And I hope all is well in your neck of the woods there. The world's a pretty topsy-turvy place right now, and there's this old quote, I think by Aristotle, but a lot of times I get Aristotle and Socrates stuff mixed up, and Plato too. Those 3, I'll mix them up sometimes. But anyway, I think it's attributed to Aristotle, and it says, "Be kind to everyone, for everyone you meet is waging an uphill battle." That's what it translates to in essence. Okay, so, I'm trying to extend that kind of an ideal out there to everybody. And for those of you who do decide to stick around, I will see you in the next episode where this story begins.